Well, something that could be a big role and could be a big part of the spending conversations happening in Congress over the next few weeks could be this idea of salt taxes. Now, this changed with the Trump tax cuts back in 2018. Right now, people who itemize deductions for federal taxes are limited to $10,000 in state and local taxes. Now, for many of us here in Kansas and Missouri, that's more than enough. That's plenty. But for those in high tax states, well, they had to end up paying more in taxes because they were used to eliminating and itemizing their taxes. And they had, literally 20 grand in property taxes. You factor in some of the local taxes on top of that. And they were able to itemize their deductions and basically have less of a tax burden, despite the fact that their state and local tax situation is very, very, very burdensome. So this is something that many right now in Congress are trying to get reversed. They want to make it so that in the bluest of blue states where there's high taxes, they can get back to having a higher deduction for their SALT taxes. That's state and local taxes. That's what SALT stands for. So I wanted to welcome on somebody who wrote a great piece about this I was reading recently, and it's good to have her on the show. Veronique de Rugy is joining us on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. She's with George Mason University and a Mercatus Center research fellow. So, Veronique, thank you for being here in Kansas City. What was the purpose of this piece as we look at how this could impact congressional spending here and the battles going on over the next few weeks?
So the purpose of first, thank you for having me, and good morning, everyone. The reason why I wrote this piece is I got kind of like annoyed with the belief that Democrats were actually in favor of paying for the spending they want with higher taxes, and that, the Republicans are the ones who are those irresponsible idiots who just want tax cuts. And I think there is some truth to the fact that Republicans don't want to pay for a lot of the spending they want, and I think they probably overbelieve that any tax cuts can pay for itself. But what I know from working in this area for a long time is that Democrats actually, they really don't want to tax people. I mean, not only because they can't even begin to tax people for the level of spending that they want, but it's also each time that they're actually put in front of a decision of whether to actually raise taxes or let for instance, a tax cut expire, or even when actually taxes on rich donors, for instance, have gone up, they fight against taxes going up. They fight in order to get those rich people paying fewer taxes. That's the purpose of the piece, is to show they're not just misguided economically, but they're also a bunch of hypocrites, and that we have this wrong notion about them.
Well, you bring up a great point, Veronique. I think you're right that Republicans often think that tax cuts will just pay for themselves, and that's oftentimes some pie in the sky. I will absolutely agree with you there. But you're right, because the Democratic Party does say, hey, the rich have to pay their fair share. But then on the other hand, they're saying, well, we've got to get the SALT tax number back up. We've got to make sure that the rich can write off taxes on their beach properties. It's like, which one is it? You say the rich should pay their fair share, but you're pushing for policies that allow them to have write-offs on second homes.
Exactly. So to give some context to this, so with the Trump tax cuts, the state and local tax deduction was capped. So the ability of people in states with high taxes to deduct their tax burden, their basically state and local taxes from their federal tax bill, was capped to $10,000. Mm-hmm. And of course, the places where this was the most felt were states with high taxes. And the reason why states with high taxes they have a lot of rich people, and a lot of those taxes are people don't want to pay them. So that deduction really affected a lot of blue states with a lot of very rich people.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since the end of 2017, they have been trying to lift that cap. And you're kind of like, okay, what is it you want? You say you want to tax, rich people, but you really don't, because this is really a really incredible unfair tax where basically the decisions that are made at the state level is then shouldered by federal taxpayers.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, most of the tax burden of the state and local deduction and the cap actually felt the right way. The cap felt on rich people. Mm-hmm. And that's what you've been frantically fighting for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. It is. Veronique de Rugy is joining us on KCMO. So, Veronique, what about how this plays out? Obviously Congress has to figure out its budget and spending stuff here in the next few weeks. Democrats really want, especially in the Senate, in some of these blue states, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, California, they're going to want to get these SALT deductions, state and local tax deductions, increased from that $10,000 limit. How is this going to play out, you think?
So here's my worry. So in 2025, a lot of the Bush tax cuts are going to expire, and the Trump tax cuts, sorry. And this is something that they're going to be exchanging. This is my worry, right? Is that in order for the Republicans to keep some of the tax cuts that are going to expire, that the Democrats, by the way, do not want to see expiring either, but they're going to strike a bargain by saying, you know what, we'll agree to do this thing that we would have done anyway, but in exchange, lift the cap, because they're obsessed about lifting the cap, because
Mm-hmm.
it really affects their state.
Yes.
And of course, it should affect their states. I'm sorry, state and local government makes decisions about what to spend and how to tax their people, and they should be actually facing the political consequences.
Yeah.
And if people want that type of government, they should be paying the level of taxes that these governments, like the kind of taxes that these guys decide.
Yeah.
And so that's what I worry. I worry that they're not going to let it go, and at some point they're going to find a way to extract that compromise from the Republicans in order to do something that the Republicans like. And that is just, it would be wrong. And I think we need to hold Republicans' feet to the fire and tell them, no,
Mm-hmm.
it's such a bad tax. It's just a bad tax break, and it mostly benefits higher income people.
Yes.
For decisions that to pay for stuff in states that they've decided to live in, and for politicians that they're electing.
Veronique, great to have you on KCMO. Thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Veronique de Rugy, George Mason University Mercatus Center for Research Fellow as well. Great job by her on KCMO Talk Radio.